Forget football. Toss out tennis. The Middle Ages had sports that make modern games look tame. Imagine a group of grown men trying to throw each other off horseback using nothing but giant wooden spoons, or chasing a headless goat carcass across a muddy field while shouting like warriors. Yes, these were actual pastimes. Medieval sports weren't just about fun. They were raw, brutal, and sometimes completely unhinged. Jousting? Basically a high-speed lance fight on horses. Mob football? Think of a soccer match with no rules, hundreds of players, and goals miles apart. If you didn't break a bone, were you even playing? It wasn't all violence, though. Some games were just strange, like trying to climb a greased-up pole for a slab of bacon, or competitive cheese rolling. Yes, cheese. Apparently, nothing was too weird to turn into a sport. And here's the kicker. Some of these bizarre medieval games are still played today, centuries later. So what made these sports popular in a time when dragons were feared and hygiene was optional? Stick around, because we're diving deep into the wildest, weirdest, and most wonderfully insane sports the medieval world had to offer. If you think modern football fans are intense, wait until you hear about mob football. Played as early as the 12th century, this game was less like soccer and more like a full-blown street brawl with a ball in the middle. There were no teams, no uniforms, and basically no rules. Just two rival villages trying to get a ball to a designated spot, sometimes miles away. The field was the entire countryside. Players could number in the hundreds, and the ball was usually made of an inflated pig's bladder. Anything went: tackling, punching, wrestling, even breaking into homes if the ball rolled inside. It wasn't uncommon for games to last all day and leave behind a trail of injuries and destroyed property. Authorities hated it. Kings like Edward II and Henry VIII tried to ban it multiple times, calling it too violent and disruptive. But people kept playing anyway. Why? Because it was a rare chance to let loose, settle scores, and blow off steam, medieval style. Mob football still exists today in places like Ashburn, England, a brutal echo of its medieval origins that refuses to die. When you think of medieval sports, jousting probably comes to mind. And for good reason. It wasn't just a game, it was spectacle. Imagine two armored knights charging at each other on horseback with 10-foot lances, aiming to knock their opponent clean off the saddle. The impact, bone-shattering, sometimes fatal. But for nobles, jousting was more than entertainment. It was training for war, a display of power, and a fast track to fame. Knights who excelled became medieval celebrities, earning land, gold, and admiration from kings and queens. Tournaments were massive events, complete with banners, cheering crowds, and feasts lasting days. Despite the pageantry, jousting was incredibly dangerous. Helmets cracked. Horses were trampled. Famous nobles like King Henry II of France died in the arena. And yet, the sport only grew more popular, sometimes even replacing real battles during times of peace. Interestingly, knights didn't always fight to unhorse each other. In some versions, the goal was simply to break the lance on the opponent's chest plate, showing skill, not brute force. Still, when metal meets metal at full gallop, things rarely stay civilized. Jousting wasn't just sport. It was medieval glory in its most lethal form. One of the most intense and bizarre medieval sports still played today is buzkashi, a game that originated in Central Asia and dates back over 1,000 years. The premise: riders on horseback compete to grab the carcass of a decapitated goat and carry it to a goal, all while being tackled, whipped, and blocked by dozens of other players. There are no teams, no protective gear, and no timeouts. Just chaos. The goat, heavy and soaked in water to make it tougher, becomes the object of a violent tug-of-war between riders thundering across open fields. The only rule? Don't fall off. Historically, buzkashi was more than a game. It was a test of strength, horsemanship, and honor among nomadic warrior tribes. The best riders earned massive respect and could even influence local politics. Despite efforts by various governments to regulate or even ban it due to its brutality, buzkashi survived. Today, it's still a major event in countries like Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Now with organized leagues, stadiums, and huge crowds. While not European, buzkashi fits right into the medieval spirit, a game where pain, chaos, and pride collide in the dust of the arena. Yes, you read that right. Shin kicking was, and still is, a real sport. Born in 17th century England, but rooted in older folk traditions, shin kicking involves two contestants standing face to face, gripping each other by the collar, and kicking each other in the shins until one falls to the ground. That's it. That's the sport. Originally part of the Cotswold Olympic Games, a kind of rural medieval festival, shin kicking was known as the English martial art. Competitors would stuff their trousers with straw to soften the blows, but it didn't help much. Bruises, blood, and broken bones were common. Despite sounding like something two bored kids would invent during a school break, shin kicking had serious fans. Some trained for weeks, developing techniques to trip, block, and land devastating kicks. Victory wasn't just about pain tolerance, it was about balance, timing, and grit. The sport declined over time, but never completely vanished. It's still held today at traditional fairs, now more for fun than for bragging rights. But even in its modern form, it's a bizarre reminder that medieval folks found competition and entertainment in the most painful of places. In short, no shin guards, no mercy. Not all medieval sports were violent. Some were just downright absurd, like greasy pole climbing. Picture a tall wooden pole, often planted upright in the town square or over a river, slathered in animal fat or grease. At the top, a prize? Maybe a few coins, maybe a leg of bacon. Either way, you had to earn it. Contestants would take turns scrambling up the slick surface while the crowd roared with laughter. Most failed spectacularly, sliding down in a mess of limbs and frustration. Others formed human pyramids, turning it into a team effort. But reaching the top was rare, and when someone did grab the prize, they were a local hero, if only for the day. The greasy pole wasn't just about the prize. It was public entertainment, a break from daily life, and often tied to religious festivals or village fairs. The game spread across Europe, with variations popping up in Italy, Spain, and the UK. And believe it or not, it's still played today, sometimes with modern tweaks, but the basic idea remains hilariously the same. In a world of swords and shields, the greasy pole proved you didn't need violence to make a fool of yourself for glory. So there you have it, a wild ride through some of the weirdest, roughest, and most ridiculous sports the medieval world had to offer. From the bone-breaking chaos of mob football to the bizarre elegance of climbing a bacon-covered pole, one thing's clear. Medieval people knew how to entertain themselves, even if it meant a few broken bones, bruised egos, or flying goat carcasses. What's fascinating is that many of these strange traditions haven't disappeared. They've evolved, survived, or stubbornly resisted time, kept alive by communities that celebrate their weird, wonderful history. It makes you wonder, in 500 years, what will people think of our sports? Will future generations look back at MMA or competitive hot dog eating with the same mix of horror and amusement? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the absurdity of medieval pastimes, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more history with a twist, and let us know in the comments, which of these sports would you be brave or crazy enough to try? Thanks for watching. And remember, History isn't just about kings and castles. Sometimes it's about shin kicking and cheese rolling.